coming to you live again. Okay. I had a small encounter as I was swimming earlier today. I found a dead dragonfly in the pool. And there's a huge trail of ants. I ended up putting the dragonfly in the trail of ants to see if they can scavenge from it and let the cycle of nature continue. So at some point in the stream, maybe after I read today, we can take a look. I think I can take you guys on an adventure to see if it's still there, the dragonfly. But anyway, what is up, Twitch folk? Got my Mountain Dew watermelon, major melon. It's quite good, quite good. Okay. Sapiens. In Sapiens today, Yuval talked about, and I said to see if I can provide quick, concise, and clear recaps. Some of the ideas that he discusses in his book, Sapiens, are pretty complex. He discusses capitalism. He talks about the banking system a little bit. He talks about credit. Some of the same reasons why we had the 2008 financial crisis. Hey, Lord Fox. Yeah. Anyway, Yuval's talking about the, like I said, the banking system, and the credit system. The way he describes it, I'd say is a really good explanation. It's like, and let me see if I can close my, closet. There we go. It's like there's a contractor, a builder. This closet. The contractor builds something for like $1 million. He puts the $1 million in the bank. The bank then has $1 million. There's a woman, she wants to make a bakery, is the example he uses, but really it could be a loan for any purpose. It could even be a mortgage loan. The bank lends the money to create the bakery, fund the mortgage payment, what have you. And she uses the same contractor, the maker of the bakery, as before to make her bakery. So at this point, he's earned $2 million, and he puts $1 million back in the bank. So now the contractor has $2 million, but the bank still only has $1 million on hand. And that can create problems. If anyone tries to pull all their money out at once, like if the contractor, Yuval calls him Stone, wanted to pull out all $2 million of his dollars at once, the bank's going to be in trouble because they still only have $1 million on hand. And yeah, that's the reason why we had the big panic with the stock market crash, the run on the banks. Like that's what happened in real life. But yeah, a lot of this is based on trust, like trust in the future, trust in people's ability to repay. And that's why we have credit type systems. It's like can be borrowed on credit. People have faith and confidence that that amount will be repaid in the future. And yeah, I would say, yeah, people do crazy stuff for the love of money. But enough about capitalism. Let's move on to War and Peace. Okay. And yeah, Yuval even has a diagram explaining the relationship between entrepreneurs and what they sell, how they do business. Like, he breaks down the whole cycle. Okay. Alright. Hopefully that's not too much info. Bored Fox. Like, those concepts that you've all discussed in today's chapter underline a lot of our financial institutions. Like, practically every major bank runs off of this concept. My major melon has ice crystals in it from the fridge. I love when that happens. Okay. Alright, I'm opening the book. We have a chance to see a lot about Prince Vasily. Excuse me. Lady Bolkonskaya. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to open. Hold on, guys. I'm bored, folks. Yeah, we have a chance to see about the different members of Prince V's family. Yeah, Pierre, Anna Mikhailovna, yeah. I think I'll read 2 more chapters today, and as always, thank you for joining. We're on chapter 5. We learned about feminine arts. Yeah, there's also a lot of royalty. A lot of royalty at this party. I guess it's more interesting that way. People don't like hearing about the poor folk. They like ignoring the downtrodden. Such is the way of our race. Chapter 5. And what do you think of this latest comedy, The Coronation at Milan? Asked Anna Pavlovna. And of the comedy of the people of Genoa and Lucca laying their petitions before Monsieur Bonaparte, and Monsieur Bonaparte sitting on a throne and granting the petitions of the nations. Adorable. It's enough to make one's head whirl. It's as if the whole world had gone crazy. I think last time it discussed a little bit about how they can only grant so many petitions. And I think the reason for that is because of resources, but reputation could be another consideration for that. It's all about the reputation. Okay. Prince Andrew looked Anna Pavlovna straight in the face with a sarcastic smile. It's like those times where you're trying to impress somebody new, so you just like put on a smile, or maybe you're in like a social event and you're just kind of expected to do that. It makes you more approachable if you smile. Fake a smile. Du Milladon. This is in a foreign language. Oh, what's cool is that I think it offers a vague translation in the dictionary. God in my right is Dieu et mon droit. Dieu à mon droit is the correct pronunciation. God in my right. It's the motto of the British monarch. Yeah, Dieu me la donne, he says here. Gare à Guy Latouche. They say he was very fine when he said that, he remarked, repeating the words in Italian. Dieu me la ha dato. Guy ci la toci. Yeah, I'll just do my best. These foreign languages. Guy la toci. God has given it to me. Let him who touches it beware. It's like the divine right of kings concept. It's like God says, I rule. None others can. I hope this will prove the last drop that will make the glass run over. Anna Pavlovna continued. The sovereigns will not be able to endure this man who is a menace to everything. The sovereigns? I do not speak of Russia, said the Vicomte, polite but hopeless. The sovereigns, madame. What have they done for Louis XVII? For the Queen? For Madame Elizabeth? Nothing. And he became more animated. And believe me, they are reaping the reward of their betrayal of the Bourbon case. Ooh, bourbon. The sovereigns. Why, they are sending ambassadors to compliment the usurper. Yeah, there's a lot of like political connections that are occurring between the characters. Yeah. I'll try to discern as much meaning as I can. Seems like does not have a high opinion of the sovereigns. Yeah, the sovereigns, she doesn't like them very much. Okay. And sighing disdainfully, he again changed his position. Prince Hippolyte, who had been gazing at the Vicomte for some time through his lorgnette, again those little glasses, Board Fox, if you remember. And anyone else who's been watching, it's like the ones you hold up at the opera, at the old Opry. Suddenly turned completely round toward the little princess, and having asked for a needle, began tracing the Condé coat of arms on the table. Condé, I think, is area. Well, there's no definition found. Yeah, Condé. It's like a family, I guess, coat of arms. He explained this to her with as much gravity as if she had asked him to do it. If she was the one who requested him to. Like, he's just imagining that she's asking him to explain it, and he's just like drawing it. He's like, and this hails from the Duke of Luxembourg, and this one from the Earl of Sandwich. Hold on. Okay, Board Fox. Hopefully my voice is a soothing background noise to your exercise routine. A nice soundtrack. Enjoy the soothing sounds of Stormer Show. Reading aloud War and Peace. Leo Tolstoy. Bâton de Gueules. Angrele de Gueules d'Azur, Machin Condé, said he. The princess listened, smiling. If Bonaparte remains on the throne of France a year longer, the Visconti continued with the air of a man who, in a matter with which he's better acquainted than anyone else, does not listen to others but follows the current of his own thoughts. Things will have gone too far. Almost like he's monologuing. Yeah, like it's like a soliloquy. It's like he's speaking it in a way that other people maybe have not yet heard, but that he's familiar with speaking in that way. By intrigues, violence, exile, and executions. French society, good French society, would have been forever destroyed. And then, I believe the French Revolution is what kicked off Napoleon's reign. All of the elite were in trouble then. History may repeat itself in this country for all we know. Who knows? The rich enjoy life, and then everyone else suffers, and then everyone goes after the rich. That's how it works. Okay. He shrugged his shoulders and spread out his hands. Pierre wished to make a remark, for the conversation interested him, but Anna Pavlovna, who had him under observation, interrupted. "The Emperor Alexander," said she, with the melancholy which always accompanied any reference of hers to the imperial family, "has declared that he will leave it to the French people themselves to choose their own form of government. And I believe that once free from the usurper, the whole nation will certainly throw itself into the arms of its rightful king," she concluded, trying to be amiable to the royalist emigrant. Let me see if I can provide some historical context here. Alexander, it's like this was, I think this may have been prior to the French Revolution, based on what I'm seeing here. Emperor Alexander is Alexander the First of Russia. Let's see, he was the Tsar from 1801 to was it all the way until 1825? I guess so. Yeah, he was the Emperor of Russia. Yeah, there's quite a lot here about him, Alexander the First. Alright, let's see. Hold on a minute. You guys hold on a second. This is what he looks like. Yeah. That's him during the Congress of Aix-la-Chapelle, 1818. A lot of references are being made to Napoleon. It looks like that's because they lived at the same time. Pretty dang interesting. He actually lost to Napoleon, Emperor Alexander. That was in 1807. Yeah, there's a lot of information here, like a ton of information. Franco-Russian alliance. Yeah, I could probably spend the entire stream just explaining the historical context of Alexander the First. Maybe. Anyway, that's the historical context of what I'm reading right now. War and Peace. Really interesting. Okay. Yeah, she's trying to be amiable to the royalist emigrant. That is doubtful, said Prince Andrew. Monsieur le Vicomte quite rightly supposes that... I might need to shut my door. Okay, we'll get in the hot water fix here. That is doubtful, said Prince Andrew. Monsieur le Vicomte quite rightly supposes that matters have already gone too far. I think it will be difficult to return to the old regime. From what I have heard, said Pierre, blushing and breaking into the conversation, almost all the aristocracy has already gone over to Bonaparte's side. It is the Bonapartists who say that, replied the Vicomte without looking at Pierre. It's like all the Trump supporters think Trump is the best. All the Trump supporters say Trump is the best. All the Biden supporters say Biden's the best. And they say everyone else thinks that too. And yeah, he's saying like all the people who believe in Napoleon say he's the best. At the present time, it's difficult to know the real state of French public opinion. I think most French, if you ask them, would say that Napoleon was pretty freaking badass. Over time, I think. Like, I think he's a national hero. Bonaparte has said so, remarked Prince Andrew with a sarcastic smile. It was evident that he did not like the Vicomte and was aiming his remarks at him, though without looking at him. I showed them the path to glory, but they did not follow it. Prince Andrew continued after a short silence, again quoting Napoleon's words. I opened my antechambers and they crowded in. I did not know how far. He was justified in saying so. Not in the least, replied the Vicomte. After the murder of the Duke, even the most partial ceased to regard him as a hero. If to some people, he went on, turning to Anna Pavlovna, he ever was a hero. After the murder of the Duke, there was one martyr more in heaven, and one hero less on earth. He's a high opinion of the Duke. Before Anna Pavlovna and the others had time to smile their appreciation of the Vicomte's epigram, Pierre again broke into conversation, and though Anna Pavlovna felt sure he would say something inappropriate, she was unable to stop him. It's like she didn't have time. He just says it. Bored Foxy, you don't have a high opinion of Napoleon Bonaparte? Yeah, I think he's a hero in France. And I haven't actually asked any French people, but if you look at his like legacy, he won a lot of battles. Like he was extremely victorious in the context of his military career. Like I don't think there's anyone quite up there as high as Napoleon in French opinion. Charles de Gaulle maybe. But yeah, he was exiled at some point, but I believe that was after he lost his final battle. Before Anna Pavlovna and the others had time to smile their appreciation of the Vicomte's epigram, Pierre again broke into the conversation, and though Anna Pavlovna felt sure he would say something inappropriate, she was unable to stop him. The execution of the Duc d'Enghien, declared Monsieur Pierre, was a political necessity. And it seems to me that Napoleon showed greatness of soul by not fearing to take on himself the whole responsibility of that deed. Dieu, mon Dieu, muttered Anna Pavlovna in a terrified whisper. It's like, God, my God. What, Monsieur Pierre, do you consider that assassination shows greatness of soul? Said the little princess, smiling and drawing her work near to her. I don't know. I think assassinations themselves are really fascinating. If you look at them, it's like there's a lot of conspiracy theories that almost seem to come out of the woodwork anytime someone's assassinated. It's like, who was really behind it? Who was really behind JFK's assassination? But yeah, even the assassins themselves, it's like they almost always have a higher purpose that they're trying to serve. It's like the guy who shot McKinley, I think the anarchist. It's like they thought they were doing the right thing at the time. They were trying to shut down a greater evil. The assassins. And yeah, she's saying that this is the case for the assassination, the execution of Duc d'Enghien. Let me see if I can find some information about him. Practically everyone that's being mentioned here in War and Peace is like a pretty famous historical figure. This is Louis Antoine, Duke of Enghien. Yeah. Let's see here. Let me show you. This is Louis Antoine de Bourbon. Died at 31 years of age, yo. That guy. Why? He was accused of aiding Britain in plotting against France. I assume. Oh yeah, and his lineage is France. So I guess he was accused of being a traitor. Yeah. Royalty across Europe were shocked and dismayed at his execution. Alexander I of Russia was especially alarmed and subsequently attempted to curb Napoleon's power. There you have it. It's like he was against Napoleon. This guy that got killed. Yeah, he wanted to overthrow Bonaparte. This guy, the Duke of Louis Antoine. Yeah.
interesting, you guys. Really interesting. If I have time later, I'll look into them. I encourage you to check them out too. The execution was a political necessity, and it seems to me that Napoleon showed greatness by not fearing to take on himself the whole responsibility of that deed. I mean, I don't think most political leaders get their hands dirty with that kind of stuff. They have people who can do that for them. Yeah, I don't think Napoleon ever needed to attack any of his political adversaries. At least not personally. He had soldiers that could do it for him. What, Monsieur Pierre, do you consider that assassination shows greatness of soul? Said the little princess, smiling, drawing her work near to her. Oh, oh! Exclaimed several voices. Capital, said Prince Hippolyte in English, and began slapping his knee with the palm of his hand. The Vicomte merely shrugged his shoulders. Pierre looked solemnly at his audience over his spectacles and continued. I say so, he continued desperately, because the Bourbons fled from the revolution, leaving the people to anarchy. And Napoleon alone understood the revolution and quelled it, and so for the general good he could not stop short for the sake of one man's life. It's like Napoleon was trying to consolidate his power at the time. Won't you come over to the other table, suggested Anna Pavlovna, but Pierre continued his speech without heeding her. No, cried he, becoming more and more eager. Napoleon is great because he rose superior to the revolution, suppressed its abuses, preserved all that was good in it, equality of citizenship and freedom of speech and of the press. And only for that reason did he obtain power. It's like he became a hero of the French Revolution. It's like he led. He was like a symbol of order in a time of great chaos. It's like when a lot of people were afraid of dying, the bourgeoisie, when they were afraid of getting shot on the spot. He was the one who's like, we need to be civilized. Yeah, and focused on what was good. Napoleon did. Yeah, Napoleon, he was a hero of the revolution. Marie Antoinette would not survive. Yeah, yo, what up, Sotos? Yeah, Bored Fox. It's like a lot of the stuff that was happening back then is still the same way today. In spite of the fact that this happened over 200 years ago. It's like there's a lot of upheaval, and Napoleon was the hero. But yeah, what up, Sotos? Yes, if having obtained power without availing himself of it to commit murder, he had restored it to the rightful king, I should have called him a great man, remarked the Vicomte. Yeah, I don't know. It's like some political opponents you have to topple, I think. And I guess in his case, Louis Anton was one of his biggest political rivals. The Vicomte thinks it wasn't necessary, though. And I think the Emperor Alexander would agree that it wasn't necessary. But to understand if that was the case, we need to more closely examine the relationship between Britain and France at the time. He could not do that. The people only gave him power that he might rid them of the Bourbons, and because they saw that he was a great man. The revolution was a grand thing, continued Monsieur Pierre, betraying by this desperate and provocative proposition his extreme youth and his wish to express all that was in his mind. I'd say so. It somewhat helped balance out the imbalance of power between the classes. I think that was the main motivator behind the French Revolution. It's like the proletariat wanted more, and they wanted less rich. Well, what? Revolution and regicide a grand thing? Well, after that, but won't you come over to this other table, repeated Anna Pavlovna. Rousseau's Contrat Social, said the Vicomte with a tolerant smile. I'm not speaking of regicide, I'm speaking about ideas. Yes, ideas of robbery, murder, and regicide. Again, interjected in ironical voice. Regicide is the killing of the king. Yeah, it was mainly political. It was like political. The revolution was in nature, the French Revolution. There was like a big push for democracy to prevail over monarchy. And I guess the wealthy and the elite just kind of represented the old way. If you look at a lot of revolutions, it's like that's the main like motivator. It's like the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution. A lot of people just got sick of the old way. It's like they got sick of the rich. They got sick of dying a lot in war. They're like, we're not gonna have this anymore. We're not gonna be sick and dying all the time. We want better lives, yo. And yeah, they just overthrow the government. Alright, but anyway, they established a new order. Those were extremes, no doubt. But they are not what is most important. What is important are the rights of man, emancipation from prejudices, and equality of citizenship, and all these ideas that Napoleon has retained in full force. Yeah, it's like the focus was on rights. Equality, freedom, liberty and equality, said the Vicomte contemptuously, as if at last, deciding seriously to prove to this youth how foolish his words were. High-sounding words which have long been discredited. Who does not love liberty and equality? Even our Savior preached liberty and equality. Have people since the Revolution become happier? On the contrary, we wanted liberty, but Bonaparte had destroyed it. Prince Andrew kept looking with an amused smile from Pierre to the Vicomte and the Vicomte to their hostess. I might be saying Vicomte wrong. As you might recall, Vicomte is French royalty. It is below a count. It is a viscount. It is below a count. It's pronounced Vicomte. I believe Vicomte. I may just start saying Viscount for the sake of it. So it's like French royalty. It's below a count. In the first moment of Pierre's outburst, Anna Pavlovna, despite her social experience, was horror-struck. But when she saw that Pierre's sacrilegious words had not exasperated the Viscount, and had convinced herself that it was impossible to stop him, she rallied her forces and joined the Viscount in a vigorous attack on the orator. But my dear Monsieur Pierre, said she, how do you explain the fact of a great man executing a duke, or even an ordinary man who is innocent and untried? I should like, said the Viscount, to ask how Monsieur explains the 18th Brumaire. Was not that an imposture? It was a swindle, and not at all like the conduct of a great man. 18th Brumaire. Yeah, a lot of historical events here I'm not savvy on, guys. The 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte. It was an essay written by Karl Marx between December 1851 and March 1852. Originally published in 1852 in Die Revolution, a German monthly magazine, published in New York City, established by Joseph Wedemeyer. Karl Marx wrote it. Wow. Well, there you go. All you philosophy junkies. Yeah, the conduct of a great man and the prisoners he killed in Africa. That was horrible, said the little princess, shrugging her shoulders. He's a low fellow, say what you will, remarked Prince Hippolyte. Pierre, not knowing whom to answer, looked at them all and smiled. His smile was unlike the half-smile of other people. When he smiled, his grave, even rather gloomy look was instantaneously replaced by another. A childlike, kindly, even rather silly look which seemed to ask forgiveness. It's like a contrast to the way he normally seems. Normally he seems like gloomy, sullen. And when he smiles, it like disarms people. It's like, okay. The Conti, who was meeting him for the first time, saw clearly that this young Jacobin was not so terrible as his words suggested. All were silent. Jacobins. It's a member of a democratic club established in Paris in 1789. The Jacobins were the most radical and ruthless of the political groups formed in the wake of the French Revolution, and in association with Robespierre, they instituted the Terror of 1793 in Thor. Basically, it's like the most fringe members of BLM, and kind of political group, like the most extreme. It's also used to refer to extreme political radicals, the Jacobins. Yeah, the Jacobins. How do you expect him to answer you all at once? Said Prince Andrew. Besides, in the actions of a statesman, one has to distinguish between his acts as a private person, as a general, and as an emperor. Yeah, it's like they need different roles. It's like you have your personal life and your work life. And this was probably the case for Eisenhower. Dude, it's like you were a general before, and it's like now you're a president. And I guess George Washington was that way too. It's like you're a general, and it's like now you're running the country. It's like you gotta transfer how it is. So it's you gotta like transfer your skill set. Yes, of course, Pierre chimed in, pleased at the arrival of this reinforcement. One must admit, continued Prince Andrew, that Napoleon as a man was great on the bridge of Arcola and in the hospital at Jaffa, where he gave his hand to the plague-stricken. But there are other acts which it's difficult to justify. Yeah, it's like Napoleon's legacy. There's definitely a lot to look at in terms of Napoleon's legacy. Prince Andrew, who had evidently wished to tone down the awkwardness of Pierre's remarks, rose and made a sign to his wife that it was time to go. Suddenly, Prince Hippolyte started up, making signs to everyone to attend and asking them all to be seated began. I was told a charming Moscow story today, and must treat you to it. Excuse me, Viscount. I must tell it in Russian, or the point will be lost. it's definitely cool to speak multiple languages. I think it's somewhat common in Europe. Where it's like you speak French, you speak English, you speak Russian. I guess if you spend long enough in Europe, you gain that ability. Here in the United States, I think it's harder to practice. I think it's more common with English and Spanish in the South. It's like if you're close enough to the border, you can get better at Spanish. But yeah, other languages, it will be harder for you to practice. Unless you've got like a reason or purpose for practicing the language. Like Mandarin in the Bay is a good example. Okay, where am I? Excuse me. Yeah, I must tell it in Russian or the point will be lost. And Prince Hippolyte began to tell a story in such Russian as a Frenchman would speak after spending about a year in Russia. So it must be, like you can tell there is an accent. Like muchas gracias. Like you can tell that it's like it's not his native tongue. Como está? My gringo Spanish. Okay, Board Fox, thank you for watching. There is a Moscow. Oh, sorry. Everyone waited so emphatically and eagerly did he demand their attention to his story. There is in Moscow a lady, une dame. She is very stingy. She must have 2 footmen behind her carriage, very big ones. That was her taste, and she had the lady's maid, also big. She said, Here Prince Hippolyte paused, evidently collecting his ideas with difficulty. She said, oh yes. She said, girl, to the maid, put on a livery. Get up behind the carriage. And come with me while I make some calls. Here Prince Hippolyte spluttered and burst out laughing long before his audience, which produced an effect unfavorable to the narrator. It's like a comedian. I guess like it could be like a comedian or anyone who like doesn't tell the punchline the right way. And it's like, haha, what are they? Fruits or vegetables? It's like the SpongeBob reference. I can't really remember right now. Tomatoes, what are they? Vegetables or fruit? It's like that. That's a good example. It's like you telling the punchline out of timing, wrong timing. Several persons, among them the elderly lady and Anna Pavlovna, did, however, smile. So it's like, yeah, they still gave him the impression that they enjoyed the story. Hippolyte. She went. Suddenly there was a great wind. The girl lost her hat, and her long hair came down. Here he could contain himself no longer and went on between gasps of laughter, and the whole world knew. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, but I don't think it's particularly funny, but I don't know. It's like losing your hat on a roller coaster or something. It's like, I guess it could be funny in a way. And so the anecdote ended. Though it was unintelligible why he had told it, or why it had to be told in Russian, still Anna Pavlovna and the others appreciated Prince Hippolyte's social tact in so agreeably ending Pierre's unpleasant and unamiable outburst. It's like, oh, thank goodness he changed the subject. After the anecdote, the conversation broke up into insignificant small talk about the next balls, about theatricals, and who would meet whom and when and where. It's like they were glad to change the subject of the French Revolution. But yeah, the French Revolution was, I think, one of the more extreme revolutions in recent memory. Okay. We have chapter 6. What do you think, chatters? Would you like to continue into chapter 6? Or join me on an adventure outside? If I don't get any responses back, I'll have to make an executive decision. I have to use the bathroom anyway, so be right back. Okay, I am back. Alright. Not seeing any chat responses, so why not? Let's continue into chapter 6. And after that, we can take a walk on the wild side. Chapter 6. Having thanked Anna Pavlovna for her charming soiree, the guests began to take their leave. Pierre was ungainly, stout, about the average height, broad, with huge red hands. He did not know, as the saying is, how to enter a drawing room, and still less how to leave one. That is, how to say something particularly agreeable before going away. It's like Pierre lacks a lot of social conventions, and that could be because of the fact that he went to a foreign university. Besides this, he was absent-minded. When he rose to go, he took up, instead of his own, the general's three-cornered hat, and held it, pulling at the plume till the general asked him to restore it. All his absent-mindedness and inability to enter a room and converse in it was, however, redeemed by his kindly, simple, and modest expression. It was redeemed by his expression. Anna Pavlovna turned toward him, and with a Christian mildness that expressed forgiveness of his indiscretion, nodded and said, "I hope to see you again, but I also hope that you will change your opinions, my dear Monsieur Pierre." When she said this, he did not reply and only bowed, but again everybody saw his smile, which said nothing, unless perhaps opinions are opinions. But you see what a capital, good-natured fellow I am. And everyone, including Anna Pavlovna, felt this. Prince Andrew had gone out into the hall, and turning his shoulders to the footman who was helping him with his cloak, listened indifferently to his wife's chatter with Prince Hippolyte, who had also come into the hall. Prince Hippolyte stood close to the pretty, pregnant princess, and stared fixedly at her through his eyeglass. "Go in, Annette, or you'll catch a cold," said the little princess, taking leave of Anna Pavlovna. "It is settled," she added in a low voice. Anna Pavlovna had already managed to speak to Lise about the match she contemplated between Anatole and the little princess's sister-in-law. "I rely on you, my dear," said Anna Pavlovna also in a low tone. "Write to her and let me know how her father looks at the matter. Au revoir." And she left the hall. Prince Hippolyte approached the little princess and, bending his face close to her, began to whisper something. Two footmen, the princess's and his own, stood holding a shawl and a cloak, waiting for the conversation to finish. They listened to the French sentences, which to them were meaningless, with an air of understanding, but not wishing to appear to do so. The princess, as usual, spoke smilingly and listened with a laugh. "I'm very glad I did not go to the ambassador's," said Prince Hippolyte. "So dull. It's been a delightful evening, has it not?" "Delightful." "They say the ball will be very good," replied the princess, drawing up her downy little lip. "All the pretty women in society will be there." "Ooh." "Not all, for you will not be there." "Not all," said Prince Hippolyte, smiling joyfully. And, snatching the shawl from the footman, whom he ever pushed aside, he began wrapping it around the princess. Either from awkwardness or intentionality, no one could have said which, after the shawl had been adjusted, he kept his arm around her for a long time, as though embracing her. Still smiling, she gracefully moved away, turning and glancing at her husband. Prince Andrew's eyes were closed, so weary and sleepy did he seem. "Are you ready?" he asked his wife, looking past her. Prince Hippolyte hurriedly put on his cloak, which, in the latest fashion, reached to his very heels, and, stumbling in it, ran out onto the porch, following the princess, whom a footman was helping into the carriage. "Princess, au revoir," cried he, stumbling with his tongue as well as with his feet. Sometimes that happens if it's like you're trying to communicate something in the process of doing something else. Like, it's like, "Oh, okay, all right, bye." It's like it doesn't come out straight. Or when you're nervous. But in his case, it's probably because he's in the process of going somewhere. The princess, picking up her dress, was taking her seat in the dark carriage. Her husband was adjusting his saber. Princess Hippolyte, under pretense of helping, was in everyone's way. "Allow me, sir," said Prince Andrew in Russian, in a cold, disagreeable tone to Prince Hippolyte, who was blocking his path. It's like, "Excuse me." It's like you just say it so someone moves. "I'm expecting you, Pierre," said the same voice, but gently and affectionately. The postilion started, the carriage wheels rattled. Postilion is a person who rides the leading left-hand horse of a team or pair drawing a coach or carriage, especially when there is no coachman. This is before the age of cars. They had horse-drawn carriages then. It's like a driver, I guess. Yeah, I guess it would be kind of driver. Prince Hippolyte laughed spasmodically as he stood in the porch waiting for the Viscount, whom he had promised to take home. "Well, mon cher," said the Viscount, having seated himself beside Hippolyte in the carriage, "your little princess is very nice indeed, quite French," and he kissed the tips of his fingers. Hippolyte burst out laughing. "Do you know you're a terrible chap for all your innocent airs?" continued the Viscount. "I pity the poor husband, that little officer who gives himself the airs of a monarch." Hippolyte spluttered again, and amid his laughter said, "And you were saying that the Russian ladies are not equal to the French. One has to know how to deal with them." "I would think so." You just gotta know your way with different types of women, I guess. Pierre, reaching the house, first went into the Prince Andrew's study, like one quiet at home, and from habit immediately lay down on the sofa. Took from the shelf the first book that came to his hand. It was Caesar's Commentaries, and resting on his elbow began reading it in the middle. What have you done to Milcher? She'll be quite ill now, said Prince Andrew as he entered the study, rubbing his small white hands. Pierre turned his whole body, making the sofa creak. He lifted his eager face to Prince Andrew, smiled, and waved his hand. That ab is very interesting, but he does not see the thing in the right light. In my opinion, perpetual peace is possible, but I do not know how to express it. Not by a balance of political power. It was evident that Prince Andrew was not interested in such abstract conversation. It's like he needs to talk about where they're going, something more concrete. One can't everywhere say all one thinks, Monsieur. You can't talk about anything anywhere. You can only talk about what's going on locally. Have you at last decided on anything? Are you going to be a guardsman or a diplomatist? Asked Prince Andrew after a momentary silence. I think he is guaranteed the guardsmanship at this point, based on Anna Kevlovna's request. Pierre sat up on the sofa with his legs tucked under him. Really, I don't yet know. I don't like either the one or the other. But you must decide on something. Your father expects it. Pierre, at the age of 10, had been sent abroad with the abbé as a tutor, and had remained away till he was 20. When he returned to Moscow, his father dismissed the abbé and said to the young man, "Now go to Petersburg, look around and choose your profession." It's like, let's see, butcher, baker, candlestick maker. Yeah, sometimes it is like that, though. It's like, is it a law book I'm seeking? Is it a classroom? What do I need? We'll agree to anything. Here's a letter to Prince Vasily, and here's money. Write to me all about it, and I'll help you in everything. Pierre had already been choosing a career for 3 months, and had not decided on anything. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that at this point in time, myself included. It was about this choice that Prince Andrew was speaking. Pierre rubbed his forehead. He was like, I'm getting a migraine. But he must be a Freemason, said he, referring to the abbé whom he had met that evening. That is all nonsense, Prince Andrew again interrupted him. Let us talk business. Have you been to the Horse Guards? No, I have not, but this is what I've been thinking. I wanted to tell you. There is a war now against Napoleon. If it were a war for freedom, I can understand it. I should be the first to enter the army. It's like, but I don't really know what it's about. I don't want to rush into a war and fight for the wrong cause. But to help England and Austria against the greatest man in the world is not right. Yeah, I don't even think Austria or England had anyone quite as big as Napoleon at the time. And Napoleon is not like Hitler. Like they're both very powerful political leaders, but Napoleon didn't have, people viewed him in a positive light. I think even his political opponents viewed him in a positive light. It was very different for Napoleon. Prince Andrew only shrugged his shoulders at Pierre's childish words. He put on the air of one who finds it impossible to reply to such nonsense, but it would in fact have been difficult to give any other answer than the one Prince Andrew gave to this naive question. If no one fought except on his own conviction, there would be no wars, he said. Convictions, not conviction, but conviction. It's a declaration that someone's guilty of a criminal offense made by the verdict of a jury or the decision of a judge in a court of law. It's it's like a crime. Yeah, but it could also be seen as a belief or opinion. Yeah, pretty interesting actually. The word conviction. It's like someone was convicted of something, but it can be your conviction. It's like you're convicted for stealing the like you're convicted for stealing the fruit, but your conviction was that women have the right to choose whether or not to get an abortion. It's like all in that word. It could also be the quality of showing. It doesn't continue. Alright, it's fine. And yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting quote. If no one fought except on his own conviction, there would be no wars. It's like if there wasn't an agenda, no one would have a reason to fight. I don't know. Pretty advanced concept. Something to think about, at least. That would be splendid, said Pierre. Prince Andrew smiled ironically. Very likely would be splendid, but it will never come about. Well, why are you going to the war? Asked Pierre. What for? I don't know. I must. Besides that, I'm going. He paused. I'm going because the life I'm leading here does not suit me. It's like I'm bored, so I'm gonna fight in the war. Alright. If you're bored, there would be a reason to go to war. In this case. Convictions. Yeah. There you have it. Okay.
Let's see if I could take you guys on a journey. Stuff to consider. It's like, Okay, I'm gonna throw on my shoes. And yeah, we can see if the dragonfly is still there from earlier today. Hold on, guys.
Alright, Mountain Dew. Yes, Pepsi, I want the sponsorship. Okay. Gotta hold my phone in one hand and my drink in the other. Hopefully I don't get locked out. If so, I'll just knock, I guess.